Well, it's not being afraid to be yourself, to express yourself.
Being able to express yourself without persecution.
Freedom is crying voluntarily because something is so good.
The stereotypical answer, or... well, I used to think that freedom was... well, actually, I don't know what I used to think. Yeah, still not sure either. I can tell you what freedom isn't. Yeah, nowadays, everything has a price tag. Freedom's what I... next question.
I think freedom is not being judged just because you believe in something and associate with certain people. Pretty much just being able to be yourself.
Freedom is what people who are enslaved don't have.
Freedom is being able to do and say what you want to.
Freedom in and of itself means something different to everyone. Do you mean what it means to me? Freedom doesn't generally have one definition. Do you want to know about freedom in a financial context or in a physical sense? I could tell you about freedom as it relates to the access of information, politics, religious beliefs. If you're looking for what I think you are, then I'll say this. Freedom is being able to act without fear of persecution. It's saying what you think without a gun pointed to your head.
It's living here, where it's sunny and beautiful outside.
Well, freedom is hope, forgiveness, the belief that anything is possible in the future, regardless of what your past holds.
Yeah, well, I need to know it exists.
I don't have the words to tell you how much. Not adequately.
It's not about how important freedom is to me. Don't live for myself, you know.
Yeah, important enough to speak to my girls about what it is and what it means for them.
Well, I've always lived here and don't know what it's like to not live in a free country. So I guess it's that whole thing where you appreciate what you have more if you know what it's like to not have it. I think freedom is important, but I'm not sure how much because I have nothing else to compare it to. So, I mean, if you know what I mean.
Of course, freedom is everything to me.
My son's always telling me about his crusades, his freedom fighting. I don't take freedom for granted. But I can't really give you a quantifiable answer, though.
You think I'd have a well thought out answer for this one? It's a predictable question, the nature of the Q&A being what it is. I don't like to think about the importance of freedom because, well, I live in the land of the free. Maybe I just take it for granted.
I think that when I was younger, I didn't really think about freedom, and I did not realize how important freedom would be.
I consider freedom to be the key to living a fulfilled life.
Well, it's this rare thing that gives you the confidence to do what you want to do, but at the same time is this pressure to succeed because, yeah, it's so rare.
Here. Now. Talking to you. This.
Freedom can feel overwhelming. More than overwhelming.
I'm not sure I'm the best person to ask.
Well, it's like I said, I have nothing else to compare it to, so I guess it feels like I've felt growing up.
I woke up this morning and got out of bed. Went to my wardrobe and selected a few things to wear today. On the way here, I went to a cafe and looked through the menu, decided what to order. The way I felt making those decisions, that's what freedom feels like.
What my son said.
I don't dwell on the thought long enough to know what I personally think or feel. I'm too busy with work. I'd rather be helping people and making a contribution.
I can't really explain it because English is not my first language, but it's many things for different people. It's just a good feeling.
Standing up for what you believe in the face of adversity, even if you lose everything. I hope for that feeling.
Oh. Look, I don't like to make assumptions, so I don't feel comfortable answering that.
I think probably. But not because they're uninterested or uneducated. I think people understand what they're taught to understand. And everyone's conclusion or understanding is affected by their life now, or their life as it has been. I think if we could clearly define the concept of freedom, then there would be no room for misunderstanding. But as always, concepts evolve and change over time. I think that answered it?
Yeah. Well, in a way, I don't think people are stupid. People understand what freedom generally means, or I suppose what it ideally means. It's hard to apply the concept, what is understood to be freedom, to reality. I don't think it translates well. Yeah, it's not so much that people misunderstand as it is that the reality of freedom is just different to the concept.
If by people you mean me, then yeah, absolutely. Oh well, actually I understand the concept as I was taught in school. Whether that's right or not, well.
Well, maybe that's something you can tell me.
Yes.
Yes.
I think that's the wrong question. A better question would be, should the concept as it stands be understood? Or does time need to be spent redefining it? If people do widely misunderstand the concept of freedom, then significant miscommunication must exist.
Yeah, sometimes.
Well, unless we live in a perfect world with one shared mind, there is always room for misunderstanding. The concept of freedom is not clearly defined. If the definition is not universal, then of course there will be misunderstanding. The answer is yes.
Well, good on Rousseau. Everyone has their own opinion, and I respect that. But as for the statement itself, yeah, I'm kind of on the fence.
Look, for a lot of people that statement is on the money. But clearly Rousseau never stopped to consider that some people aren't born free.
Man is born free, everywhere he's in chains. Well, I agree with Rousseau.
Well, I've never heard it before. But from what I've experienced, I can't disagree.
I remember Mr. Taylor, my society and culture teacher, talking to us about that last year. It's funny, I never thought about it that way before. And I still don't think I've had enough life experience to decide whether or not I agree with him, but I can understand what he's saying.
Rousseau was onto something. How long have I got to answer this question?
Rousseau was always profound. He was never formally educated, but he always brought common sense to his life philosophies.
Can we apply this concept to the, that statement to the concept of freedom? If we did, then maybe the concept would be easier to understand, in that Rousseau seems to be saying that whilst the notion of freedom exists, it is unattainable.
Yeah, I think that's right. Because when I was young, I just didn't know the word, the expectations of everything, of the society. But now I'm just more aware.
Jean-Jacques Rousseau was a wise man. His work, The Social Contract, is complex. and, well informed, and I think very true.
Yeah, in this moment. Maybe.
As close to it as I'm gonna be.
In the stricter sense of the word, yes.
Of course I'm not.
Well, I don't feel like I'm forced to do anything, and I can speak my mind when I want to, so yeah, I am.
What a question. Am I free?
I'm happy where I am.
No. But I don't think anyone is.
No.
Freedom is having your own thoughts, values, and beliefs, and then living by them. And at the same time, it's not expecting anyone else to be on exactly the same page as you in life. And being okay with that. Not letting anyone or anything change you through ultimatums. Being comfortable in your own skin. It's essential. Without it, life would be purely mechanical. It depends on who you are, where you're from, what you were taught growing up, what your life experience has been, your socio-economic status. So many questions, and everyone has a different answer. So I guess the conclusion would be that freedom feels like whatever you believe it to feel like. Give people credit. I don't think they misunderstand. I think even the guy living on the street who's never known anything but that way of life and has never had any educational training knows what freedom should be. Understanding the concept isn't difficult. It's a good statement. It's an interesting thought to consider. Depends on how you define free. I'm certainly not enslaved. But freedom is complex.
Our own personal asterisks, so to speak. Conditions apply, as they always do. What is the current global slavery index? What are our politicians and other elected officials, people granted power and influence, doing to ensure that our fundamental freedoms are protected? Or how are they exploiting them? as the global community, know about those that are enslaved? Do we care? Will governments allow or deny entry to refugees and asylum seekers? Does having money buy you freedom? Can freedom be purchased? These are the questions we should be asking. Over time, there have been many debates, discussions, conversations surrounding the notion and concept of freedom. Expert opinion from recognised authorities has become commonplace. These authorities claim to speak for a collective us. And while their views are certainly justified, the question is whether they're qualified to speak for and on behalf of a diverse global community that in many ways does not even know itself. We are flawed. And if we are to admit we are flawed, to ourselves and to each other, then we must also admit that our perceptions on some of the most talked about themes and topics might be flawed as well. Life. We're free to live it. Yet somehow we find ourselves entangled, trapped within it. How does the reality of freedom compare to the concept? Does it measure up or fall short? Does freedom change who we are as people? How we act? How we think? Does the thought of freedom promote honesty, acceptance? Is it unconditional? What's the catch? How does life change our belief of what freedom is? How do the expectations of others weigh on that freedom? An innate need to be accepted often takes hold and filters the way we behave and interact with the world around us. We may find ourselves inhabiting intentional or unintentional facades, strengthened by popular opinion. What is true freedom? Got the answer. At least in part. Lie in what we don't say.